The air in 14th century London is not air at all. It is a thick, wet blanket of smoke, offal, and human waste. It clings to the back of the throat, a constant taste of iron and decay. Gutters are not gutters. They are open trenches, sluggish with a brown tide that carries the secrets and sickness of 100,000 souls. The sound is a perpetual grinding of wooden wheels on cobblestone, the shriek of a pig being slaughtered in a narrow alley, and the low, constant murmur of prayer from behind damp stone walls. Out on the grey, churning sea, a lead coffin bobs on the waves, a sealed box of rank and privilege, its occupant preserved against the worms, but not against the cold indifference of the water. And in a courtyard, shielded from the wind, a knight stands over his own wife. The steel of his sword is a sliver of winter light. Her tears trace clean paths through the grime on her cheeks. He is not a monster. He is a man of honor, and he is about to settle a debt in the only way left to him. Most people hear the words Grateful Dead and think of psychedelic rock, of spinning dancers and tie-dyed shirts. But for 2,000 years, that phrase was a code. It was the name for a specific, recurring nightmare, a story whispered from the Roman Empire to the fjords of Scandinavia. It was the story of what happens when you find a corpse rotting in the street, denied burial because it still owed money. This isn't just a fairy tale. It is a forensic record, a ghost story assembled from the bone fragments of history. It is an investigation into how humanity coped with the two things it feared above all others: financial ruin and the physical, spiritual pollution of the unburied dead. In the medieval world, death was not an escape. It was merely a change in legal status. If you died in debt, your body was not your own. It was not your family's, it was an asset. It was the final piece of collateral, and your creditors had every right to seize it. They could leave it in the public square, a festering monument to fiscal irresponsibility. They could deny it entry to the churchyard, condemning the soul to wander in eternal shadow. This was more than a punishment, it was a terrifyingly effective form of social control. The horror was twofold. First, the shame. Your family's name, disgraced for generations. But second, and far more primal, was the fear of the body itself. The smell of decay was not just unpleasant, it was believed to be a physical substance, a miasma, a poisonous vapor that could seep into the living and corrupt them from within. To leave a body unburied was to poison the entire community. It was an act of biological and spiritual warfare. Into this world of sacred obligation and brutal consequence walks a man, a knight named Sir Amadace. Or perhaps he is a Danish soldier or a merchant from Tyre. His name changes, but his condition is always the same. He is ruined. He can feel the cold, thin edges of his last few coins in his leather purse. They are a pathetic weight against his thigh, a constant reminder of his failure. He once had lands, a title, the respect of his peers. Now he has only the worn leather on his feet and the hollow ache in his stomach. He walks through the city not as a knight, but as a ghost in waiting. The world he once commanded now seems to mock him. The smell of baking bread from a doorway is an accusation. The laughter of merchants counting their silver is a judgment. He feels their eyes on him, calculating his worth and finding him wanting. Every shadow seems to hold a creditor. Every gust of wind whispers his name, followed by the sum of his debts. He is drowning, and the whole world is made of water. He turns a corner, and the smell hits him first. It is the sweet, cloying stench of corruption, a miasma so thick it feels like a physical barrier. And then he sees it. A body lying on a crude wooden bier outside the church doors. It is a man, his face bloated and grey, his clothes little more than rags. Flies swarm his open mouth. A stray dog sniffs at his bare feet. Standing guard are two grim-faced men, their arms crossed. They are the creditors. They speak to the weeping woman beside the corpse, the man's widow, their voices low and hard as stone. They are explaining the law. No payment, no burial. The body stays, it rots. It is their property now. Amadace looks at the dead man, at his vacant eyes staring up at the unforgiving sky, and he sees his own future. He sees the final, public humiliation. In that moment, something inside him breaks. He walks forward, his hand going to the last few coins in his purse. It is an insane gesture, an act of financial suicide. He will pay this stranger's debt. He will buy this soul its peace, even if it costs him his own. The burial is done, the earth is turned, the priests have been paid. Sir Amadace stands alone, his purse empty, his future a perfect void. As the last light of day bleeds from the sky, a shimmering begins to form over the fresh grave. It coalesces into the shape of a man, the very man he just laid to rest. The ghost looks at Amadace, its eyes filled not with gratitude, but with a chilling sense of transaction. It speaks, its voice the sound of dry leaves skittering across pavement. It promises him a partnership. It will guide him to unimaginable fortune, to a life beyond his wildest dreams. But there is a price. There is always a price. The ghost makes its demand, a simple, terrible contract sealed in the twilight of a graveyard. "I will help you," the spirit says. Amadace, desperate and starving, agrees. A pact made in a boneyard is not one to be taken lightly. He seals the covenant not with a handshake, but with a drop of his own blood, a crimson bead that sizzles and vanishes the moment it touches the ghost's ethereal hand. The transaction is complete. The world around him seems to sharpen, the colors deepening as if a veil has been lifted. The pale stranger, his new business partner, is no longer just a shimmering apparition, but a solid presence at his side. His guidance, a cold whisper in Amadace's ear. Their journey begins not with a map, but with a series of uncanny nudges and impossible insights. The stranger points to a patch of dirt where a buried purse of gold lies waiting. He whispers the name of a merchant who will pay double for a common trinket. He foresees a rockslide, pulling Amadace from a path just moments before it's obliterated. Slowly, meticulously, Amadace's fortune grows. He is no longer a beggar, but a man of means, dressed in fine clothes, his hunger a distant memory. Yet with every gain, he feels a phantom chill, a reminder of the silent partner who walks beside him, the partner who is owed his half. Their travels eventually lead them to a city draped in mourning. The air is thick with a palpable grief, the smell of sorrow as tangible as the stench of the open sewers. Here, they learn of a princess, a maiden of legendary beauty, whose hand is offered in marriage along with the entire kingdom. It is an unparalleled prize, a king's ransom for any man brave enough to claim it. But there is a reason the throne sits empty. 7 suitors have tried. 7 princes and noblemen have walked to the bridal chamber. And 7 corpses have been carried out the next morning, their bodies twisted, their faces frozen in masks of unimaginable terror. The locals whisper of a curse, of a demon that possesses the princess, a serpent that uncoils in the darkness of the wedding night to devour the soul of any man who dares to lie with her. Amadace, emboldened by his recent successes and the unnerving confidence of his spectral guide, sees not a death sentence, but the ultimate acquisition. The pale stranger simply smiles, a bloodless motion of the lips. "This," the ghost whispers, "will be our greatest prize." On the wedding night, the castle is silent, holding its breath. Amadace, following the stranger's meticulous instructions, does not approach his new bride. Instead, the stranger takes charge. He has prepared a ritual of fire and smoke, using the burning heart and liver of a monstrous fish pulled from a cursed river. The stench is acrid, a foul, eye-watering miasma that fills the chamber. As the princess sleeps, the stranger performs his violent exorcism. The smoke billows, clinging to the bed curtains, and from the bride's mouth, a shadow seems to writhe and pull itself free. It is a vile, thrashing thing, a serpent of pure darkness that hisses and spits before the holy smoke consumes it, burning it into nothingness. Amadace watches, horrified and mesmerized. In the morning, the sun rises on a living groom. The curse is broken. The city rejoices. Amadace is hailed as a hero, a savior. He has it all: the kingdom, the crown, the immense wealth, and a beautiful, grateful bride, now freed from her demonic torment. The pale stranger is nowhere to be seen. For a time, Amadace allows himself to believe the debt is forgotten, that the ghost was satisfied with the destruction of the demon. He has won. He is king. The past is a nightmare from which he has finally awakened, but we need to pause the story here. We need to reset our perspective. Because to understand the true horror of this tale, we must look past the folklore and into the forensics. The story of the poisoned maiden is not just a ghost story. It is a medieval diagnosis, a supernatural explanation for a biological reality that was too terrifying to confront directly. What if the serpent in the bride's mouth was not a demon? What if it was a symptom? To the people of the Middle Ages, the greatest terrestrial fear was not dragons or goblins, but contagion. And no disease was more feared, more stigmatized than leprosy. Leprosy, or Hansen's disease, was a sentence of living death. Its victims were declared legally dead, forced to wear special clothing and ring bells to announce their unclean presence. They were exiled, shunned, and feared with a religious terror. The disease was seen as a divine punishment for sin, a physical manifestation of a corrupted soul. Now, imagine a princess, born into royalty but afflicted with this terrible disease. Her family, desperate to maintain power and secure an alliance, would hide her condition. They would present her for marriage, a beautiful, tragic figure, unaware of the contagion she carried. A suitor, a healthy nobleman, would arrive. He would marry her, and on their wedding night, in the intimacy of the bridal chamber, he would be exposed. Weeks or months later, he would develop symptoms: the fever, the lesions, the creeping numbness. To a pre-scientific world, what would this look like? It would look like a curse. It would look like the bride herself was poison, that some malevolent force within her was striking down her husbands. The story gets more specific and more medically accurate. The detail of the serpent in the mouth is the key, the iceberg moment of this entire narrative. This isn't just a random, frightening image. It is a chillingly precise description of a specific, advanced symptom of lepromatous leprosy known as rhinomaxillary syndrome. In the most severe forms of the disease, the bacteria attacks the cartilage and bone structure of the face. The nasal spine erodes, the bridge of the nose collapses inward. The hard palate and the upper jaw, the maxilla, begin to recede and disintegrate. This facial collapse creates a gaping cavity where the nose and upper lip used to be, a dark, open wound leading directly into the throat. To a medieval observer, looking at a person in the final stages of this disfigurement, what would they see? They would see a dark, serpent-like hole in the center of the face, a horrifying orifice that seemed to have swallowed the victim's features. The folklore didn't invent a monster, it described a symptom. The exorcism, the burning of fish organs, was a folk remedy. The smoke was believed to drive out the venomous air or miasma that caused the sickness. The hero didn't fight a demon. He was present for a primitive and ultimately useless medical procedure. The bride was never cured. She was simply a carrier of a disease that no one understood. This is the world our hero, Amadace, has stumbled into. A world where the lines between medicine and magic, between pathology and possession, are hopelessly blurred. It's the same gritty, tactile reality found in the story of Tobit, a righteous man whose faith is tested when he is blinded by sparrow droppings falling into his eyes, a bizarre, almost mundane form of suffering. It's not a dragon's fire, but the filth of the real world that brings him low. Amadace believes he has conquered a supernatural evil. He has married the princess, and she is now, by all appearances, healthy and whole. He has built a life on a foundation of false hope, enjoying the fruits of a victory he doesn't understand. He rules his new kingdom with a fair hand. His wife, his queen, is beloved by the people. In time, she gives him what every king desires most: an heir. A healthy baby boy, the symbol of their future, the continuation of their line. The kingdom is prosperous, the family is happy. The memory of the graveyard pact and the pale stranger fades into the background, a strange fever dream from a desperate past. The contract feels null and void. The ghost has vanished. The debt, it seems, has been paid. But a contract sealed in blood has no expiration date. One evening, as Amadace sits with his wife and plays with his young son, a chill seeps into the throne room. The torches flicker, casting long, dancing shadows. A figure detaches itself from the darkness in the corner of the room. It is the pale stranger. He is no longer a shimmering ghost, but terrifyingly solid, as real as the stone walls around them. He does not look at the gold, the tapestries, or the crown on Amadace's head. His cold eyes are fixed on the queen and the child. He has come to collect. Amadace, his blood turning to ice, stands. He offers the ghost anything. Half the treasury, half the kingdom's grain, half the land itself. He is a king now, he can pay any price. The stranger raises a hand, silencing him. His voice is the same dry rustle of leaves it was in the graveyard. The contract was clear, he says, not half of what you own. He looks at the queen, then at the child in her arms. These are your gains, your wife, your son. Amadace stares, uncomprehending. The stranger clarifies the terms with surgical precision. He produces a long, gleaming sword, its edge honed to a razor's sharpness, and lays it at the king's feet. He does not want the child, he wants the wife. He demands that Amadace, the hero who saved her, take the sword and physically cut his queen in two to give the ghost his rightful, bloody half. The promise of fortune has led to this. An impossible choice in a silent throne room, with the blade gleaming on the floor, waiting. The air in the throne room is thin and cold, each breath a shard of glass. Amadace's gaze is fixed on the sword. It is not a weapon of war, but an instrument of butchery. The steel seems to drink the torchlight, holding it within its depths. He looks at his wife, her face a mask of disbelief that is slowly cracking to reveal the raw terror beneath. Her knuckles are white where she clutches their son, a small, warm bundle of life, oblivious to the cold geometry of the moment. He looks at the stranger, whose eyes hold no malice, no glee, only the impassive patience of a creditor. In the mind of a modern man, the choice is simple. It is no choice at all. You defy the ghost, you fight, you die protecting your family. But Amadace is not a modern man. He is a man of the old world, a world bound by ironclad oaths and spectral laws that are as real as stone and steel. An oath to the living can be broken by circumstance, but an oath to the dead, that is a debt recorded in the ledger of the cosmos itself. To break it is to invite a ruin far worse than death, a hollowing out of the soul, a curse upon his line for all eternity. He knows this in his bones. The stranger is not just a ghost, he is a principle, he is fidelity made manifest. Slowly, as if his limbs are filled with lead, Amadace bends. His fingers, which have held a lance and a scepter, close around the cold leather of the sword's hilt. The weight of it is immense, not in pounds, but in meaning. He rises. The queen makes a sound, a choked gasp that is half a word, half a sob. Her voice is a fragile thread in the crushing silence. He does not look at her, he cannot. If he meets her eyes, his resolve will shatter, and with it, the sacred order of his world. He must be a king, he must be a man of his word, even if it means becoming a monster. He raises the sword. The polished steel catches his wife's reflection, a distorted, weeping effigy of the woman he crossed the world to save. He sees the terror in her eyes, the absolute betrayal. She doesn't scream again. The sound is trapped in her throat. She simply holds their son tighter, turning her body to shield him, her final act a mother's instinct. Amadace's knuckles are bone white. A single tear traces a path through the grime on his cheek. He closes his eyes, shutting out the sight of his own damnation, and with a guttural roar born of ultimate despair, he swings the blade. It arcs through the air, a whisper of death. Down it comes, aimed at the heart of his world, and then it stops. An inch from her skin, the blade is frozen in place, held fast by an unseen force. Amadace's eyes snap open. The stranger's long, pale hand is wrapped around the steel, his grip effortless, yet absolute. The metal does not even tremble. The ghost looks at Amadace, and for the first time, a flicker of something other than cold patience appears in his spectral eyes. It is a look of profound, ancient satisfaction. You have proven your fidelity, the stranger's voice echoes, not from his lips, but from the very air of the room. The oath is fulfilled. With those words, his form begins to dissolve. He does not fade, but unravels, his body turning into 1,000 motes of dust and faint light, like a column of smoke caught in a sunbeam. The hand on the sword vanishes, and the blade, released from its purpose, clatters to the stone floor with a deafening clang. The stranger is gone. The oppressive cold in the room lifts, replaced by the warm, familiar air of the castle. For a long moment, there is only the sound of the sword ringing against the stone, and then silence. Amadace stands frozen, his arms still outstretched, his mind unable to process the reprieve. The queen stares at him, her breath coming in ragged, painful gasps. The horror of what almost was hangs between them, a shimmering, terrible ghost of its own. Then, the spell breaks. Amadace's legs give way, and he collapses to his knees, the strength gone from him. The queen stumbles forward, falling with him, and they cling to each other on the cold floor, two survivors of a shipwreck of the soul. The baby, startled by the noise and the sudden movement, begins to cry, a piercing, vital sound that cuts through the lingering dread and anchors them back to the world of the living. The story of Amadace and the Grateful Dead is not, in the end, a ghost story. It is not about a haunted graveyard or a vengeful spirit. It is a story about a far more profound and ancient concept, a principle we might call spectral reciprocity. It is about the deeply ingrained human belief that the universe keeps a balanced ledger. Amadace's initial act was one of pure, unrewarded decency. He saw an injustice, a man left unburied, denied his dignity in death, and he spent his last coin to correct it. He did this for a man who could do nothing for him in return. He was paying respect not to a person, but to the sanctity of personhood itself. He was acting on the hope that such decency matters, that it is seen and recorded by something. The stranger was the embodiment of that hope. He was the universe balancing the books. The trials Amadace faced, the dragon, the impossible riddles, the rescue of the queen, were the interest paid on his initial investment of compassion. But the final test, the demand for half of his gains, was the most crucial. It wasn't about greed. It was a test to see if Amadace truly understood the nature of the contract. Would he honor a promise that demanded the impossible? Would his integrity hold even when it meant destroying everything he loved? By raising that sword, Amadace proved that his word was absolute. He demonstrated that he was a man who understood that some debts transcend life and love, that they are woven into the fabric of cosmic order. And in proving that, the debt was cleared. This idea, this hope for a just cosmos that rewards our unselfish acts, is a cornerstone of human civilization. It is why we build monuments to the fallen. It is why we tend to the grave of ancestors we never met. We are performing acts of kindness for those who can offer nothing in return, demonstrating our fidelity to the past and our faith in the future. We are all, in our own way, paying the debts of the dead, hoping that the universe is watching and that it will, in its own time and its own mysterious way, pay us back. These are the stories that reveal the hidden architecture of our beliefs. They are maps of the human soul, charting our deepest fears and our most profound hopes. If you find value in exploring these ancient maps with us, consider subscribing into the heart of the stories that made us.